At you. Wanted to just do a good, really quick video on a trade setup we're looking at. And it's not so much just a trade setup. I think it's going to relate to a lot of trades that you could be taking on ahead. And I'll show you what I mean by that, because really there's one stock that controls a massive part of this market. There's top five basically within the tech sector controls everything. If you look at Nvidia, and that's what we're going to look at today, and then we're going to look around the periphery, because Nvidia, depending on how you look at it, is anywhere from 8 to 11% of the S&P, one stock, right? So yeah, they've definitely leaned it in one direction, but that doesn't matter, because at some point we're going to see the market said it's done. It's not really one stock that controls it. It's so much other stuff around the underlying. And again, as I talked to you in the past about this whole idea of the 1943 bull market trend. So it's so much as goes into this. And I think it's more important that we do focus, though, on kind of the top things that are controlling it, as well as so many other internals and stuff we need to look at. So I'm going to be coming at you with trade setups from time to time. This new idea, see, ride, profit. What we have to see is we have to see the model is correctly set up. Then we're going to catch the wave by getting out in front of it. We want to be in front of the wave. We don't need to catch the total top or the total lows on a short or a long. We just want to catch the heart of the move and be riding the wave until it's getting ready to end, and then flip out and then wait and paddle back out and find the next wave. And then we're going to profit and we're going to move on. So this idea, see, ride, profit. That is where I want to focus. So let's just get into this. I don't want this to be too long. Quickly, please read the disclaimer. As always, these are for educational and entertainment purposes only. Trading risk and viewer responsibility is always very important. And again, the limitations of the analysis and the data, etc., etc. So please read it. And then let's jump into it. All right, let's start right here. We're taking this off of my Discord channel. So we're going to pull the models right off of here. We've been over here in the chat today and yesterday talking about these setups over here. If you want to come into my Discord channel and you want information about that, let's flip back here. It's right there, destinytrading@gmail.com for joining the channel. And then, of course, if you want me to speak on a podcast or you're interested in having a meeting with me, please get a hold of me, and I'm open to being on your analyst team. If you're looking for somebody to join your team to utilize my absolutely proprietary and out-of-the-box data models as a backup to your own team's ideas, I would be very interested in talking to you about bigger relationships with larger players out there, family offices, hedge funds, and any fund in general to share my data models and have conference calls with you. And what we can do is we can obviously produce slide decks for you, do videos around those slide decks, and then obviously have conference calls around those data setups. So let me know. All right, let's get into the data models here. Let's not waste any time. Nvidia, let's take a look. So here's NVD. This is the Granite Shares short. And everybody's just, you can see we've had another push down here, obviously, with this push back up in the market. So we're looking at the inverse here, right? Here's Nvidia running back up. And here's the S&P, and you can see how the S&P is just perfectly tracking Nvidia. So as I say, it's extremely important. So you can see in our model that velocity is still draining and trend is still draining. So until we see a reversal in this draining effect, we don't need, this could possibly be the low here at 480. There's a good chance of that. But we only care to catch the heart of the move. We don't need to get in right at the absolute low. If we get in somewhere around here in the next few weeks, maybe even into the end of the first week of May, this might chop around a little more. We don't care, because then we're going to ride it up. And I can see this easily being a double, as long as we catch the heart of the move. So there's no need to try and bottom tick or top tick anything. Now we can see on the bigger picture Nvidia, I'm using a lot of these ideas. I'm going to be using these ideas that I call a VT or a VL, which is a velocity top or a velocity low. And I've also got these ideas of MT or ML, which is momentum top or a momentum low. And we're adding a new one, which will be the trend, which this now is a trend top, which is a TT. And a trend low. So you can see on our bigger picture model here, going all the way back into 2023, you notice before the velocity top, how Nvidia was, even if you didn't see this data, it doesn't matter. If every day you're looking at the data and you can see that the trend is rising day after day or week after week, which we're looking at the weekly model here, and week after week the velocity is rising, then price has to rise, because that is basically mirroring and measuring the flows of the market. And so you can see once the velocity topped out, the market began to top out, and you can see the trend began to top out. So we had this initial top out as the liquidity drained, because what the velocity is measuring is liquidity, and what the trend is measuring is actually what the capital or price is doing. So you can see as the velocity drained, we started to come down. And then we got down here, which is still a little bit deep, because you notice that it got too deep to the trend and velocity. And a lot of times we'll get deep and we'll have it rally back up, but there's other models involved as well where price can stop. And we're not going to get into those right here in this video. We'll do that more going forward because we can look at other things. And we'll talk about supports and resistance going forward. Right now, all we're trying to do is look for the top to get in on the move. And then we'll get into other models that will give us our support levels and what has to happen as it starts to run. So you can see what happened is velocity has continued to drain, which is good, because it takes a long time for velocity to drain. So it's not good for price up here, because this at some point is going to start to pull down on the trend. But you notice for now, the trend's been flatlining since all the way back here around September, October. Looks like right about October, it started to flatten out. So price cannot go any higher. You notice it's right at the top of the trend. So I would say Nvidia is very close to being topped out, and that's why actually NVD may be a great entry here, because according to this model, we are pretty much done. So you can see that, right? So we're getting really, really close to a trade setup. Now you can see here in this next model that going all the way back here to that last low even of the market, you notice how the velocity channel was still rising. So this is another component that I call the velocity channel. I call it the V. Stands for the velocity channel. And you can see the same idea. You can see it draining here, and then you can see it rising. Again, we could put in all these little technicals, which I don't want to do, because here on this particular model, we're only focusing on the velocity channel. So we need to look also at what the velocity channel is doing. And in the velocity channel, we're going to use these things called momentum tops or momentum lows. So you can see we've now got the momentum top. So in other words, here's that big, long trading sideways pattern we saw in the last model on the weekly. You notice that? But now it's completely a different picture than this last low, or I should say this last high, because this last high was falling into the channel, coming back up the channel, and it didn't have a momentum top in the overall momentum of the move going all the way back to 2023. So this rising channel goes all the way back into 2022 and way back to the lows. And so it's now topped out and it's now collapsing. And notice how price now is topped out on the channel. And this is the daily model we're looking at because it's important, but you notice how the trend's still rising. So, I mean, this is going to drop back down and start to head down. So this actually is, I'm telling you, probably a great entry short. We're not necessarily going to try to top tick it, but we're going to take a look at that. Again, you can see Nvidia, what's going to matter here, you notice we're only taking it here to the month of April. So you can see that we were deep here at that last low, and that's part of why we rallied up, because when we're deep, the trend was still up here, wasn't it? You see that? So it rallied back up into the trend reversed, and we came up, but it's come up to the top of this channel. And so you can see we're now topping out here. But really, for this to go down, we're going to need the trend to reverse. You can see the trend here rising, the trend rising. A trend reversal and a velocity reversal would be interesting. I don't want to spend too much time on the technicals of why of that, but we will get into that more going forward. So you can see here in the signal model, you notice here how our velocity channel has been collapsing. Even into this last rally out of 2025, you notice that was needed because it had to rally back up into this channel. Now, we're not measuring Nvidia here. We're measuring something else here of Nvidia, which is very important. It's a very important component that has to do with liquidity injections into the market by the Federal Reserve. So you can see we still had to come up into this declining channel, but you notice this channel's declining as we've now gone into that weekly sideways trade. So remember, we're looking at that September, October, where that weekly model, right? Let me go back here just to show you that. Let's find that real quick. Excuse me, I'm going to have to jump around till I get into it. Where is that weekly model? It popped out of it. So let's keep going. you can see that the trend is going sideways on that weekly. So soon we're going to break down here. You know, this red needs to burst down. But before that can happen, you notice how we're trading up and down of this blue line. I call this the gate. So we can only break below it when the trend goes negative. You notice back here where the trend went negative and we were able to pop below. So we're going to need to see this red come down, test the channel again, go negative and stay negative, and then this is all going to collapse down here into the channel. So we want to watch that. Now here's NVD. You can see close up on NVD, the velocity is having the biggest collapse it's ever had, and it's taken us out, targeting it looks like around a May 11th low. But you can see the price on that low at about 480 did hit our channel here. You notice it in the channel here, coming down, and in the channel here. You notice how this channel's working down and now is starting to form a curve, right? So going out here, it is going to curve and then start to work back up. But right now we're just focused on trying to find this low to enter NVD down in here. So we're not far off. Now, the other thing we're looking at is the top 5. So we've got this new model we're using that's actually a trade. This is an ETF we're going to be trading as well. And you notice it's fallen from 42 all the way down to 24. A big loss of your money. And you notice how it's come straight down the channel here, right? Trend still above. So top 5 tech, we still don't see a turn up in trend and we don't see a turn up in velocity. And then we've got the top 5 semi. This is another one we're going to be trading. You notice it's done the same thing in a short order. In April, it's come from 20 all the way down here to 10. Big losses. You don't want to be early on this stuff. And you notice the velocity is still draining, but the trend is starting to make its way up. So we're watching this, and I'll talk to you more about this top 5 semi, and Nvidia is one of the components of this particular indicator. And then the last one we're looking at, which is very important, is going to be the top 50 of the S&P. So let's look at that. And you notice the same idea since October, November. You see how the trend has just gone flat. You notice that. You notice back here in 2025, I call this deep. So you'll see this idea of deep in the model, where in other words, we came down, but look at the trend was still up here and it really wasn't breaking. And so price needed to come back up, because you can't be deep. You've got to come down with the trend and you've got to come down with the velocity. So what we want to watch now in the top 50 SPX, I'm going to be using this to time the SPX as well, is to continue to see a drain in velocity, not see a rebuild like we saw back here coming out of 2025. And then we're going to want to see. So what we're looking for now is for this trend to begin to drain and the velocity continue to drain. And then that will also control the speed of how quick we come down. But you can see in this model, the top 50 SPX, we're topped out here, right? So, I mean, we're very, very close now to an overall top in the market. But you can see when we do this very close April model, we had a trend low right back here. So you notice as that trend low happened, we came out for that final pop. So we're still going to want to see in the top 50 this trend break down. You can see I'm using the trend right here since we can't see the shadow up here. You notice the trend topped here and then went up. The trend bottomed here and then went up. So we're going to want to see this to do the same thing here in the coming weeks. So that's it for now. Just wanted to come over and present that to you. I hope you like it. I'll be at you with more trade setups, and we'll be doing a lot ahead. Again, get a hold of me at destinytrading@gmail.com if you're interested, or maybe you want to see more videos and going forward. But this year, I'm focused fully on trades. I want to help youth have faith and hope out there because everything's so expensive right now. I want to be able to guide them into solid trade setups so they're not losing money. They're timing their entries much, much better, and they're going to profit to be able to enjoy life. So that's what it's really going to be all about. Thanks for tuning in. Glenn out. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.